In the dense rainforests of southeastern Nigeria and southwestern Cameroon lies one of Africa's most mysterious and sophisticated writing systems, a script so old, so intricate, and so culturally powerful that European colonizers once feared it. Its name is Nsibidi. Far more than a set of drawings, Nsibidi represents an intellectual tradition that predates European contact by centuries. It is one of the great symbols of West Africa's lost literate past, a past that many outside the continent never learned about, and a past that colonial authorities tried to erase. This is the story of Africa's forbidden writing system, its origins, its purpose, its suppression, and its modern-day resurgence. Nsibidi emerged centuries ago in the Cross River Basin, primarily among the Ejagham people. Over time, it became deeply tied to the Ekpe or Ekpe secret society, an initiation-based institution that played political, judicial, and spiritual roles across the region. Although scholars often date Nsibidi to the 15th century, elders and cultural historians believe its roots may stretch much further back, possibly into the pre-Iron Age period. The exact timeline remains unclear, but what is certain is that Nsibidi predates colonial rule by many generations. The script was composed of logograms and pictograms, visual symbols that conveyed not only words, but entire concepts. Not 50 symbols, not 200 symbols, but over 20,000 symbols. This places Nsibidi among the world's most complex indigenous symbolic systems, comparable in depth to early Chinese characters or ancient Mesoamerican glyphs. Because of its connection to the Ekpe society, Nsibidi carried layers of meaning accessible only to the initiated. It became a cultural code, a system of communication designed not to be universal, but to be selectively understood. Its applications were extensive. Ekpe courts used Nsibidi symbols to record judgments, oaths, fines, and legal agreements. Symbols represented land treaties, community decisions, and political agreements between villages. Many symbols encoded spiritual concepts, ancestral beliefs, and ceremonial instructions. Nsibidi appeared on walls, cloth, drums, masks, and body paintings. There were symbols for affection, attraction, marriage, desire, and emotional communication, a form of symbolic love letters. Important events were recorded through symbolic sequences. Unlike Western alphabetical systems, Nsibidi didn't just write words, it wrote ideas. Nsibidi was not a single uniform script. It had dialects, variations in symbol meaning, depending on region or social level. Some symbols were public, simple signs used in everyday communication; restricted, symbols reserved for community leaders; esoteric, accessible only to high-ranking Ekpe members. The script could be written left to right, top to bottom, or arranged in symbolic clusters. Its layered meanings meant one symbol could contain an entire story or legal principle, a complexity that surprised even early anthropologists. When European explorers and colonial administrators encountered Nsibidi in the late 1800s, reactions ranged from fascination to alarm. At a time when European ideology depended on the myth that Africa had no writing, Nsibidi posed a direct contradiction. Here was a writing system older than colonial presence, organized, widely used, tied to powerful institutions, and completely unreadable to outsiders. Colonial authorities perceived it as a threat. Reports from the early 1900s describe Nsibidi as mysterious, secretive, potentially dangerous, a code of a powerful cult. The inability to decipher the symbols heightened fears that Nsibidi was being used to coordinate resistance, and in many ways they were correct. Nsibidi was a form of indigenous autonomy. This is Voices of the Forgotten, where Africa's buried truths rise again. Let continue. By the early 20th century, the British administration moved to suppress the script. There were four primary reasons: fear of hidden communication. Anything unreadable by the colonial authorities was considered a security threat. Attempts to break indigenous power structures. The Ekpe society held political and judicial influence. Undermining Nsibidi weakened that influence. Missionary campaigns. Missionaries viewed the script as tied to pagan practices and sought to eliminate it in favor of Christian literacy. Colonial assimilation policies. The British wanted indigenous people to adopt Western education, Western religious beliefs, and the Latin alphabet. By banning Nsibidi in schools, discouraging its use in public, and dismantling Ekpe's civic authority, colonial officials pushed the script into secrecy. Many elders stopped teaching it. Younger generations were encouraged or forced to abandon it. Manuscripts and artifacts were confiscated or destroyed.
Over time, large portions of the script faded from popular memory. Nsibidi was not the only African writing system suppressed or erased. Across the continent, multiple scripts flourished independently before colonial disruption. Ge'ez, Ethiopia, one of the world's oldest alphabets, used for over 2,000 years. Vai, Liberia, invented in the 1830s by Momolu Duwalu Bukale, still in use today. Bamum, Cameroon, created by King Njoya in the late 19th century, later banned under French rule. Ajami, West Africa. African languages such as Hausa, Wolof, Fulfulde, and Mandinka, written using modified Arabic script for over 700 years. The existence of these scripts challenges the long-standing claim that Africa was non-literate before European contact. In reality, the continent had multiple writing traditions, sophisticated, functional, and culturally embedded. Many were lost during colonization. Others survive only in fragments. Despite attempts to erase Nsibidi, the script has begun to re-emerge. Artists, designers, historians, and heritage groups are reintroducing Nsibidi symbols in clothing, jewelry, murals, tattoos, and academic research. Ekpe continuity. The Ekpe Society still exists today, although much smaller, and continues to preserve deeper layers of the script privately. Universities and cultural institutions in Nigeria, the United States, and Europe have begun documenting Nsibidi as part of Africa's intellectual history. Researchers are compiling symbol dictionaries, scanning artifacts, and reconstructing lost meanings. The script is no longer hidden, but neither is it fully understood. Its revival opens new questions. How old is Nsibidi really? How much knowledge was lost? How many symbols remain undiscovered? The story of Nsibidi forces a reconsideration of African history. If a writing system with 20,000 symbols existed centuries before colonization, then what else has been forgotten? What other intellectual traditions disappeared? How many African scripts were erased, ignored, or suppressed? The fear surrounding Nsibidi was never about danger. It was about control. A literate society with its own governance system, legal codes, and communication methods does not fit the colonial narrative. Nsibidi stands as evidence of a continent whose intellectual achievements were far greater than widely acknowledged. Today, Nsibidi symbolizes more than writing. It symbolizes resilience. Despite suppression, despite misrepresentation, despite erasure, the script survived in memory, in ritual, in artifact, and in hidden practice. Its resurgence is not just cultural, it is historical correction. Nsibidi exposes the limitations of colonial narratives. It reveals how much African knowledge has been lost and how much still lies hidden. Africa's erased writing systems may have been suppressed, but they were never truly destroyed. And as long as people continue to ask questions, explore archives, and revive indigenous traditions, the truth will continue to rise. Nsibidi stands as a reminder: Africa was never voiceless, only unheard.
This is Voices of the Forgotten, where Africa's hidden truths rise again.